I'm going to talk about why simply pulling estate planning forms offline, doing a DIY, using them yourself may not be sufficient for your needs. Why using an attorney, an estate planning attorney in particular, would be the best course of action. And a lot of that is the knowledge in using the tools. If you think about it, I can have a scalpel on this table. I know how to use a scalpel, but I don't know how to use a scalpel like a brain surgeon. Same thing with legal documents. The estate planning attorney knows how to use the estate planning documents just like the surgeon knows how to use the scalpel. So when going through and selecting your product and then getting your initial consultation with the attorney, it involves more than just simply saying, I need to update my will to include certain things, because there's a lot of things to think about. There's a lot of customization to meet your needs and wishes, and here's just some of them. So one can be the ease for loved ones. So when you die, it's a stressful event. There's a funeral to plan, there's bereavement, loss, all that kind of stuff. And the last thing that your loved ones want to deal with is a messed up estate. We don't want to deal with things like frozen accounts, legal delays, other things like that. Even prior to death, there's medical decisions, there's fights that could ensue amongst the family, tension, strife, fights, irreconcilable fights that can ensue over making medical or financial decisions for the parents. So it's really important that a full estate plan is in place to try to help avoid some of these stressful situations. Another concern is providing for the spouse, and whether there's a mixed family, whether the decedent wants to make sure that their biological children are the ultimate recipients of the inheritance while still providing for the spouse, the surviving spouse, for the rest of his or her lifetime, and that can be accomplished through a trust document, and that could be custom crafted by the attorney. There's also considerations regarding fairness to the children, whether there should be equal division, whether assets should be distributed in certain ways. For instance, if there's a house, if that appropriately goes to one house and then money goes to the other children, and splitting it all equally amongst each children so no one feels left out. On the other hand, there might be a child that you want to disinherit. In that situation, it's really important to get all your ducks in a row, because any disinherited heir is likely to challenge the will as being invalid or made under duress or other things. So you want to make sure that the legal documents are done correctly so they can't be challenged later. There's also protecting your heirs, which could be done through a trust document. Maybe you feel like your children aren't responsible enough to handle the inheritance until reaching a certain age, such as maybe 25 or 30. And what can they get from the trust, such as maybe loans from the trust to start a business, maybe customary distributions of income to support a certain basic lifestyle. All this can be put in the trust to give your children something, but make sure that that inheritance is protected. There's also reducing taxes. There's some tax mitigation strategies that can be employed by an estate planning attorney depending on your situation. And then there's also special bequests. Those are things that specifically go to a certain person. You might have, for example, a housekeeper that's cleaned your house your whole life. Maybe they do more than that. Maybe they've driven you around town, taken care of you, all kinds of things. And you want to make sure that some money is allotted to that person to take care of them. It could be your church. You might want to make a specific bequest to the church. Or you might have a pet. There's provisions that can be put in for pets. There's pet trusts that can be created to make sure that they're taken care of. There's also lawsuit protection. Another reason for putting your inheritance in an irrevocable trust is that money, if there's a spendthrift provision, is protected from lawsuits of creditors against the beneficiaries. So maybe the beneficiaries has risky behavior. Maybe you're worried that they're going to be sued. You want to make sure the money's there for them. If this spendthrift provision's in place, then they can still receive some income distributions from the trust, but the trust corpus would be protected from creditors. So all these things are custom crafted provisions that when someone buys a product from us and books their first call and fills out that initial intake form, we have a call with an attorney, and the attorney asks these questions to try to figure out the needs of the client under the circumstances, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. That's what our clients are paying for. They're paying for access to an actual attorney, not just downloading some form offline, because we believe that every American is entitled to an attorney-client relationship in preparing an estate plan.